So it comes to this: man to man, mano a mano, toe to toe, nose to nose, shirts and skins, eggs over easy. It's movie night with Andy and Gabe, and I'm Gabe.
And I'm Andy.
And we are not talking about a funny thing happened on the way to the forum, and we are also not talking about my cousin Vinny. We are talking about Ernest Goes to Jail. Now, why are we talking about Ernest Goes to Jail? Because the last time I picked the movie, it was one that I watched as a kid, as a rental with my family in the early to mid 90s. And I thought, why not keep going with that theme? I'm going to kind of run through a lot of the little lesser known rental movies that I watched during that time period when I was an older kid between 10 and 12 ish. And this was one of them. It When I thought about that time period, because the last one that I picked was
The best
why
of
do I want to
times.
say the best of times? I almost said any given Sunday. It was definitely not any given Sunday. It was the best of times. And So yeah, I started thinking about that time period. So here's another one from my personal life and my personal family that was a big part of my viewing when I was a child. It's an Ernest movie. Ernest Goes to Jail. Now, I want to say before we get started with this, I am aware that Doug Walker talked about this movie, I think, and I think James Rolfe talked about it too. I haven't seen either of those commentaries.
Neither
So
have
if I
I.
cover, okay, so if we cover some of the ground they did, it's totally by accident, and it's totally because probably how could you not notice certain things in this movie? So, uh, I want to start this off real quick by talking about Jim Varney and the Ernest character in general. And I want to kick that subject to you, and I want you to explain to me, because you told me that you have actually seen this movie, and that I think you said you saw most, if not all, of the Ernest movies. Now, you live in the United States of England.
Hmm.
How was that character received over there? And it's an interesting question because I listened to a couple of interviews with Jim Varney last night in preparation for this. He got asked that question a lot. How does Ernest translate to Europe? How does Ernest translate to Europe? Does it do good in Europe? Does it do good in Europe? He got asked that a lot. I'm super curious about that. You grew up and lived in Europe. How is that character received over there?
I couldn't tell you, first of all, Britain, fuck you, Brexit. Um, not Europe. No, but seriously, no, I couldn't tell you in as much detail. I can only say that I saw his films on TV, and they were recorded by my dear old nan off of the TV on VHS tapes, and then she would label them with with the Ernest movies. I mean, I first of all, I do want to say that much in the tradition of the last prison movie we watched, Papillon, Ernest Goes to Jail is a heartfelt and morose tale of how you can imprison a man's body but never his spirit. Um, Ernest,
Indeed, it is.
Ernest, it goes Papillon, Ernest Goes to Jail, Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
Um, no, well, I can only say that I his films aired on TV enough that the majority of them were recorded um, off the TV by my nan. I watched them, and I remember liking them decently enough. I rewatched this one, and I like the character. Um, I like the character a lot, sort of. It's complicated, but I guess we'll get into that.
Yeah.
Um,
Sure. Well, I guess the reason it's such a prolific question that he got and that I'm interested in is because he plays basically a Southern hillbilly, and you guys don't have Southern hillbillies there like that. So I guess uh, I guess people were interested at the time as to whether that would translate
You see, you've got to
over there, and I guess
remember.
it did.
You've got to remember though that the British aren't bamboozled when they see something that doesn't exist here. Like if we see like a southern hillbilly, we just go, "Oh, that's a southern hillbilly from America." We're not fucking baffled by it in the way that some other cultures might be when confronted with something that they're not as familiar with, because we're
Oh, sure, sure,
exposed to
sure. No,
media from
I'm
outside of our
yeah, no,
bubble.
no, no. No, I didn't think that. I just thought
Yeah.
like, would it is that a niche enough American? Is that a niche enough part of American culture to where it wouldn't be perceived in the same way by different
No, because
cultures? I guess.
no, because we don't really view someone like that as being all that particularly different from other Americans. We think you're all hillbillies, and we're right. Um,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
no, but
Uh-huh.
what I mean is, say like, um, Ernest would be just kind of like a typical simple American dude, you know, like like I never thought of him as like necessarily like a hillbilly or anything like that. Just, you know, like a just like a handyman, you know, just an everyday guy who is has acute schizophrenia.
Well, that's interesting. So maybe it didn't translate because I can tell you he absolutely is an unusually how would we say an unusually stereotypical hillbilly in a very particular sense. So maybe there's part of that that doesn't actually.
So, do you know how
That makes me
he
think.
came about?
So I will answer that question in short form and then let you tell me the rest of the
Okay,
details.
sure.
I am aware that he started basically. I know he did a lot of theater when he was young. The first film television stuff he started doing was commercials.
Yeah.
I know he had a TV special. I became aware of him through commercials that he did specifically for a person named Cal Worthington. And I'm going to talk about Cal Worthington for a minute. Everybody Google him. Everybody Google Cal Worthington. Go on YouTube, type in Cal Worthington commercial, and you will see my childhood growing up in the Bay Area. Cal Worthington was one of the most amazing human beings ever to live on this planet. I won't go into the whole biography of him. You can look it up yourself. He was amazing, but he owned a lot of car dealerships in basically the two that I knew the most were Sacramento and Long Beach because we got commercials for both of those. He had amazing car commercials where he was standing on top of an airplane while it was going upside down. He would do all these crazy stunts. He did a whole bunch of gimmicks with animals. His car commercials were absolutely insane. He was pretty local to California and Nevada, but he inspired a whole lot of other media. He was an incredible human being, and Jim Varney did a lot of commercials for him as the Ernest character. So that was how I understood him to have broken into media, especially with that character.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, I mean, you got the motion. So basically, this fella called Cherry, um, he came up with the idea of like, what if we advertise products like what if my advertising agency who people contact to make my ads, what if I have a character who is our sort of go-to guy? So say like, this is a very American thing. We don't do this in Britain. I guess it would just not, you know, everyone's too close together. But say like, fucking Smallville in America might have an advert on TV specifically in Smallville to advertise the Smallville dry cleaners or something like that, and that's not a thing
Mm-hmm.
here. That kind of
Sure.
local TV thing's not a thing. But say, um, so Cardin and Cherry advertising, they had an in-house character. So and that was Ernest P. Worrell, played by Jim Varney, who was a stand-up comedian at the time, and all of the commercials were kind of done in a similar way. So you would contact Carden and Cherry and say, I need an advert for my car dealership. And you would pay them the money, and then they'd say, okay, well, Ernest, our character, will advertise your car dealership. And then Ernest would be showing off this car, usually to a neighbour who you don't see. It's always like you're the neighbour, and he'd be talking to the neighbour, and he'd be like, yeah, I got this pink Cadillac, crushed velvet seat, driving in the back, cruising down the street. He'd do the whole, like, about how great this car was and how he got it from this dealership. And it was always be like, he's just like talking kind of like to his neighbour about this sweet new deal that he got. And this was always done by Jim Varney. And basically, people loved Jim Varney as Ernest to the point where Ernest was advertising this wide array of products and basically making Carden and Cherry advertising a fuck of a lot of money. So rather than coming up with a unique idea every time for how to advertise a product, you would just have this recognizable face, Ernest P. Worrell, do it for you. So Jim Varney, being an actor, would play the part, and then eventually this goes from commercials to him being successful enough to kind of try out films, and we get this Ernest film series. And Jim Varney is this great actor, but you can kind of tell that he was pigeonholed as Ernest because he didn't do very much outside of Ernest. And I think you can tell that because every film that he does, he always tries to find a way to play a wide range of characters who aren't Ernest in the film, to just kind of really branch out and show all that he can do as an actor. So I guess that does bring us to Ernest Goes to Jail. Although I should tell you, I very, very nearly accidentally watched Ernest Scared Stupid for some reason.
Well, maybe we'll do that for in October, because I love that one too. Yeah, that about covers it. And it's funny. So this is a good lead into one of my observations. I had told you in a little private back and forth that I thought that Jim Varney deserves to be mentioned in the same company as somebody like Robin Williams or someone like that. And I thought, as I was watching Goes to Jail, I thought, oh, I know why he isn't. It's because he played one character basically for his whole career. Yeah. And that really is a shame, because one of the things that we can talk about in this weird movie is the unbelievable versatility of Jim Varney's acting. In this film, Ernest, who is a lovable idiot.
A lovable idiot who, might I add, is way more ripped than you remember him being.
Yes.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Totally.
Fucking muscle on this dude.
Yes. So this guy has very modest ambitions for his life. He works as a janitor, something that I can personally relate to, at a bank, and his lofty ambition, his life's dream, is to be a clerk at the bank instead of a janitor. So he has very modest ambitions for his life. He is thrilled to get a letter in the mail saying that he has to report for jury duty, which is funny in itself because he loves the idea of being a juror for some reason.
Because he knows that a man's life he holds in the palm of his hand.
Yes, in the palm of his hand, and he says, should I crush it or let it go free?
He's a bit Old Testament in this film, isn't he?
Yes, he is, definitely. This is a weird movie, man. So he gets jury duty, and one of the people, the person who's on trial, at the trial that he's a juror for, is friends with a person in prison named Nash. Nash looks exactly like Ernest because it's played by the same person. Nash is basically Ernest's double. So the plot here is that Nash tells this person, or I'm sorry, I'm getting this backwards. The guy who's on trial tells his buddy Nash, hey, this guy on the jury looks exactly like you. We can switch you guys. You escape from prison, and you, in exchange, you get me off for this crime that I'm accused of. So that happens. Thus, we have established the plot. Nash impersonates Ernest. Ernest is now in prison. Everybody thinks he's Nash. Nash is now out living Ernest's life, but he's nothing like Ernest because Nash is a hardened, competent criminal. Did I explain that okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So I want to just kind of stop there and zero in on one element of this film real quick. There's a scene where Jim Varney is playing two different characters in the scene. Ernest is given a tour of the prison as part of his jury duty. Nash sneaks over to where the jury's at, and he tells Ernest, hey, come over here. He lures Ernest over, and a character named Lyle, who is played by an actual professional fighter,
Yes,
who's been in a lot of stuff, who with a
Jeff
really
Cobb.
good record.
Yeah.
Yep.
Jeff Cobb.
Yep. Knocks him upside the head. They switch clothes, and Nash now goes back to the jury pretending to be Ernest. I have seen a lot of movies where one actor is playing two different characters. Rarely have I been so convinced that this is a different person that if I had been told that this guy was played by two different actors, I would have believed it.
Yes. What I was going to say about Jim Varney as Nash is not only does he play it completely straight, I feel like this is a character that could have been the villain of an action movie of the time. Like,
yes.
obviously he hams it up a little bit to make it more appropriate for a comedy. But the thing that I would remember, like, watching this is I felt like this could have been a villain from, like, say, The Crow.
Yeah.
Like
it's
you know
so
where it's like
funny.
Yeah, like it's not like
my brother made up a character that was based on a combination of Nash and Top Dollar from The Crow, the main villain in The Crow, the guy. Are we having fun or what?
Yeah.
You say that?
Yes,
yeah.
because it's that type of villain. Because the villains in The Crow are like, because The Crow is a great film, but The Crow was not like Die Hard or Lethal Weapon. Like, it was hammier with its villains, and I felt like even though it was serious and dark, it still had a little bit of like a tongue in the cheek when it came to its villains.
Yes.
And I thought that this character that he played would have fit in perfectly with Top Dollar and Fun Boy.
Yeah. Yes.
And those sort of guys. Or like a RoboCop villain, you know?
Sure. Exactly like that dark but hammy. You put it exactly right. Yes.
B-movie action villain.
Yeah.
But really, in a good way.
Really, really good character. When there's a whole bunch of... So this Nash guy, he doesn't know who Ernest is. He certainly doesn't know that Ernest is this borderline, as you say, borderline schizophrenic, weird person. So he's just trying to act like a normal guy, and Ernest is not like a normal guy. And there's one or more people kind of see that something's wrong or whatever. But the interactions between Ernest and his friends are very different from Nash and his friends, obviously. So these people come up to this Nash thinking he's Ernest and slap him upside the head to get his attention. When that happened, this Nash character would turn around and look at them like he's gonna fucking kill him, and I actually felt worried. I felt worried for those people when that would happen.
Yeah, like I've spent a lot of time thinking like he's gonna snap someone's neck. I don't know why that would happen. I don't know why it would happen in an Ernest film, but it felt like it might. Like
he's gonna punch this guy out. So really good villain, really good character, really good acting chops for good old Jim Varney. I was looking through some of this movie. I was very happy to learn that apart from, of course, Jim Varney and a few other people, most of the cast of this movie is still alive, including both Chuck and Bobby.
Yep.
The guy who played Ruben, very tragically, and I was crushed to learn that he passed away last year. And the warden, who was of course played by that guy, also passed away. But most of the cast is still alive. That was a weird segue. So, couple other things I want to bring up. The weird elements in this movie. I wonder what you thought about some of this, because it's not just the fact that it's a weird movie about a guy who gets electrocuted multiple times and gets superpowers at certain times in the movie.
Yeah, that happens, by the way, people, if you haven't seen the film.
Yeah.
He's also Magneto. He's everything.
Yeah, it turns into Magneto, yeah.
Yeah, he's everything that was mentioned earlier, but he's also Magneto, and he's also Emperor Palpatine.
Yes. Yeah, he does get Magneto Jedi powers. He really does. There's an actual, had to have been successful state execution in the movie. There's at least 2 attempted homicides. There's at least 1 actual homicide. And in addition to that, you have an element where there's prison. And the concept of prison and prisoners and wardens and guards in a movie that's for kids. And I don't quite get what the tone of that was supposed to be, because the warden, your instinct is to say, okay, crooked Shawshank Redemption type warden, messed up Shawshank Redemption type guards, but the criminals aren't innocent. The Ruben character did actually kill someone that kicked off the plot of this movie. They're not bad, but somewhat good people, except maybe Lyle. I don't get what that tone was supposed to be. It was really weird. I've never quite seen anything like it. So yeah, what do you make of all that?
This is a movie that I would describe as a fuck it, why not movie. In the first few minutes, Ernest is being chased around a bank, which is largely made of cardboard, by a series of metal objects that are inexplicably drawn to him. At that point, you kind of gotta go, fuck it, why not? So by the time he's flying at the end, because he's Magneto, you kind of gotta go, fuck it, why not? This is not a movie in the same way that like another comedy might be a movie. This film is a load of rubbish. And I can't criticize it at all.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, so I get that. I totally get that. I totally with you on that one. But the dark elements throw a curveball to that, I think.
I don't think it's that. I don't think it's that that dark.
So, but what I mean is they're not, so they don't come off as dark at all. Like the prison, the scene where he has 1 bar of soap and he whittles it into a giant prop machine gun.
Fucking ruined my life. That ruined my life. My other half was asleep was asleep in the room because of that whole fiasco that I explained earlier. She just ended up sleeping until like 3 in the afternoon, and now she's gone off to a bloody Green Day concert. And I saw that, and he's like whittling this soap, and then he's got this massive fucking assault rifle. There's like the soap could never be, and I just fucking snapped.
That was a good one when you get the
because that's a joke that's not funny when you're a kid as well. Because I haven't seen this since I was a kid, and that's a joke that's not funny when you're a kid. But when you're an
It
adult,
was,
like the
yeah,
absurdity of it is like,
for sure, for sure. When he's dressed as the woman too, as the old woman, and he's telling off the
Auntie
guard. I
Nelda.
like that too. Yeah. Where did he get that hat? Where did he get that? I love that part. There. I I want to reiterate. They don't come off as dark elements, but if you really think about them, they're super dark elements. And I'm like, where did some of this come from in a movie that's about a guy who turns into Magneto and has a fight with a vacuum cleaner? Like, it's just weird. It's just weird that all of those elements would be in a movie. And by the way, I, let me just say too, it all works somehow. And I don't know how it does, but it all works.
I think, I think the reason it works is because it's a load of rubbish.
Yeah, I guess you just have to accept that this
because
guy.
because it's like what I say. It's because it's a fuck it movie. This wasn't a movie that existed for any reason other than shit. What does Ernest do next? I guess he goes to jail. Okay,
Yeah, and
fucking scramble the rest of it together. The plot is not worth the paper it was printed on. It's just Jim Varney fucking swaggering about, and you know he was there like, what if I fly in this one? And then they're like, yeah, I guess I could have magnetic powers, and they're like, yeah, do it, yeah, fuck it, why not, whatever you say, Jim. Yeah, okay, that could be fun. Like, this
Hey,
is
but
a
that's the
movie.
thing, what you're
He
just
has
describing.
he has a bath. He has a bath in a washing machine, and they didn't even get an actual washing machine that could fit. It's a fucking cardboard box with a cardboard sheet behind it, with the buttons just printed or maybe even crayolaed on for like spin, and then he presses what is just a coloured shape on on the same sheet of cardboard, not even stuck on, printed on, and then he starts spinning. They didn't give a fuck with this. They were just like, okay, Jim, have fun. Here's a cardboard box. Pretend it was a bath. We don't care. Like, so of course it all kind of works because there was no foundation. There was no foundation to clash with to begin with. It was just anything for a laugh. Fuck it, why not? Like,
But it has three discernible acts. This is what I don't get. And there's the thing. He doesn't just go to jail. That's the smallest element of the film. He gets replaced by a doppelganger. He gets superpowers by getting electrocuted multiple times. He's got these two weird security guards that work and that they have their own subplots. He doesn't just go to jail, and they weren't just. I can't. I don't think they were just making up a bunch of bullshit at once, because it works together somehow. I can't tell which one of these elements was the genesis of this film. The becoming magnetic, the doppelganger plot, or the going to prison for a minute, which he's not there for that long. Like, for a movie called Ernest Goes to Jail, he's not in jail for very long. I can't tell which one of those things was the conceit of the movie. They're all this sort of Jenga puzzle that builds something that's coherent, and I don't know how he did that.
it's okay. I'm gonna take you back to my memories of this film as a kid.
Okay.
The memories of this film as a kid were virtually non-existent compared to Ernest Scared Stupid and Ernest Saves Christmas. Ernest Saves Christmas, I remember him being like, it'd be nice to have snow for Christmas, and then Santa makes it snow, like at the end of the film, kind of thing. Ernest Scared Stupid, you remember the monster exploding when he kisses it. This one, for some reason, even as a kid, the bit that I found funniest, the bit that stuck with me forever, and the bit that made me fucking smile when I heard it again, was when he comes back to his house after Nash has been living there, and it's all swagged up in like the 70s opulence, and he goes, "I've been vandalized by Elvis." And I don't know why. I think it's just funny because it's true. But even as a kid, I found that really funny because, yeah, it kind of did look like his house had been vandalized by Elvis Presley with all of the stuff everywhere.
I'm gonna send you a screenshot. I was texting my brother, who obviously will watch this together. Back in the day, I was texting my brother, and I wrote that quote down and said, "Okay, that was funny." That's probably I've been vandalized by Elvis. That's probably my favorite one-liner in the film as well. That was good.
It's just amidst all of the bollocks that has always stuck to me, and it's just funny because it's true. Yeah, it does look like Elvis has vandalized his house.
Just the tackiest shit that you could possibly think of. I also, who would throw away a perfectly good dog? I thought that was pretty good. You know what? The whole timbre and format of this review has been pretty appropriate for that movie because I've also been all over the place. But what else can you do for a movie like this? I want to talk about one particular scene.
Okay.
And I'm going to talk about when.
Wait, can I make a guess? Does at some point Ernest have a really long speech where he really, really overacts and it contributes nothing to the plot?
No, but if you're talking about when he talks about facing death, that whole part, that was actually a pretty one-to-one analogy for my own anxiety back when I watched this movie as a small child. I remembered that when I was watching this. So I have a lot of that movie's an emotional time capsule for me. It was not a good period in my life when I watched it, but I as a last hurrah here, I want to talk about when that dumb bitch gets to the bank. She sees that Ernest, aka Nash, is robbing the bank. He's I think at this point he's incapacitated both Chuck and Bobby. He's taken hostages. And that stupid cunt, rather than leaving and calling the police from safety, stays in the bank that's being robbed and calls her boss.
Yeah, that'll show him.
So she gets captured.
I like that when that happens as well. Sorry, but when that happens, he's setting up a bomb, and the guy comes like, Ernest, what are you doing? What are you doing here, Ernest? And at this point, Nash is just done, and he turns around and he goes like, is everyone here an idiot? Like, I'm clearly robbing the bank. I'm gonna steal all the money. What do you think I'm doing? This is clearly a bomb. Come on now, like, take it seriously. I am robbing a bank. I'm robbing this bank.
There's a part of me, and I think this you
that
may
feels like
this.
That every day.
Yeah. Yeah. Believe me, I related that part too, especially with. Well, anyway, there's a part of me, and I think there might be a part of anybody who watches this who is rooting for Nash. Because these people really are insufferable. They really are insufferable. And you really want him to just annihilate, especially Chuck. But you really want him to give these people their comeuppance. And I think just about everybody.
I was just waiting for him to slap one of them, and it never really happens.
Yeah, really sides with the Nash character. Yeah, don't blow him up. That's too quick. Just beat the fuck out of them. Is what I was waiting for. Yeah,
he's fucking good in this film. By the way, I want to talk about a couple of little production design things.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked about the cardboard washing machine, but I want to talk about how the prison is lit with red and green gels that make it look like a fucking Pirates of the Caribbean ride. They're going about, and he's there like, but I don't want to die, and like there's just like red, and he's bathing in like red and green lights and stuff like that. I was like, oh yes,
yeah.
Prison at the discotheque. And then when
I was really curious, what you're going to think of that. Yeah,
they put him in an electric chair, and it looks like an electric chair that Dr. Frankenstein built.
Yeah, we thought that was funny. My parents thought that was the way the chair looked. Actually, I remember them thinking was quite funny.
Yeah,
Um,
like, do you have do you want to you want a bag over your head? Do you want to wear glasses? Do you want anything like that? And he's like, how about a few last words? And they're like, don't be such a fucking pussy. You want last
yeah,
words? Last words?
yeah,
No, coward. Ooh.
yeah, pretty much. And it's oh god, that was a really that was actually a very sad line in retrospect. The line was they asked, "Do you want a blindfold or a cigarette?" And he said, "No, I'm afraid of the dark, and cigarettes will kill you." Where cigarettes actually would end up killing Jim
That's
Varney
true.
a
That's
decade
true. Yeah.
later. Yeah,
Yeah, he died of lung cancer, age 50.
yeah.
Mad. No, that is
Ah,
actually true. I didn't, and I didn't even clock onto that at the time. I was just like, "Huh, that's a
yeah.
funny joke."
What
Yeah,
a real super talent. You've got to, but I've never seen, and I think I, I'll put it this way. I've never seen a movie like this, and I've seen weird, jumbly, thrown together, crazy, just whatever movies. But I have never seen a movie like this. I've never seen one of those sort of a tornado put all these elements together movies that works like this. And Jim Varney is a real super talent, in my opinion.
and it
And
seems like
it's
he had a lot of creative control as well. Because what I was going to say, because I'm quite jealous of Jim Varney and Jim Carrey, because for me as an actor, I often feel like I'm kind of trapped in my body, and if I just need to kind of stand still and sort of act with the face and the voice, I'm fine. But when it comes to like real like physical comedy or like just like being like just the movement of my body is something I've never felt that good at in. And if you want to see that at its fucking maximum for me, it's his just ability as like a physical character actor. Um, he didn't do very much. He mostly played this character, and he was obviously Slinky Dog in Toy Story, but but I think you can tell that he felt a bit pigeonholed because of how he tries to do as much as he possibly can in a 90-minute film.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he so the two most mainstream projects that he ever got was the playing Jed Clampett in the Beverly Hillbillies movie and Slinky the Dog in Toy Story 2. And I think that's a fucking shame. I think he should have played villains. I think he should have played other kinds of roles. I love the Ernest movies, the ones that I've seen anyway, which is most of them, but I think we lost out with him getting overlooked for things. He said that he thought he had gotten overlooked for roles because of not just because of Ernest, but because of the commercials and stuff that he did. He made a lot of money because you make a fuck ton of money doing commercials. So he
Yes,
made a lot of
yes.
money. He was financially successful. His movies were financially successful, but as an actor, I feel we never got to see how good he could have been if he had been in other things.
Yeah, and I think that
Um,
so, but even him playing Nash in this, I
yeah.
think that, and I say that character would have fit in perfectly in something like The Crow, but I
Mhm.
don't see why he couldn't have been in something like Die Hard, because I believe he was aware enough as an actor that he could have toned down the more silly elements for a more straight movie, like a more straight action movie or something
Yeah.
like that.
Well,
Had he had the opportunity, I think he really would have been able to do it. I
I,
do think. I don't want to say his talent was wasted, because I think that's unfair and uncharitable to the stuff he did do, which I think showcases him very well. But I feel a little bit like what we said with Robin Williams with The Best of Times uh, last week, that we didn't really get a we didn't really get to see. Oh, sorry, the week before last, that we didn't really get to see his character. I think we did see his like. Jim Varney had a character in a way that I don't think Robin Williams did, but I feel like we didn't. We needed to see more of him. I think and I think he
I think we
deserved to
deserve.
show us
I
more.
think we. Yeah. I think we missed out on not seeing him in adult movies playing serious characters, which I think he could have done. He did do in this movie. I think he would have liked to have done. But I this kind of goes back to something, sort of circling back to the beginning of this thing. And but one of the first notes that I made was regarding the interviews that I've seen of him. So I didn't know very much about him until I started looking into stuff for this review. He was a very, very intelligent man. He was very good at business. He knew what worked, he knew where it worked, he knew what was making money, and he knew how to make more of it. And that's what he did. And I think that I think his business sense interrupted his actor seeking a role sense, because he was really good at being aware of what was selling, and just doing that. And if you're making a lot of money doing something that's second nature to you, why wouldn't you keep doing that? So he knew where the markets were, he knew what markets he was doing well in. He was very, very, very smart when it came to business, and when it came to having his thumb on the pulse of his fans, and what was working. But yeah, I really do feel like we lost out on not seeing him in other things.
Yeah, I mean, he wanted to do Shakespeare at some point. He studied Shakespeare, and he
Mm-hmm.
would have liked to have done Shakespeare. And I think he would have been like a great Shylock in like Merchant of
Yes,
Venice or something like that.
yes, yes, absolutely. It's such a tragedy. I'm so grateful for what we have of him. I'm so grateful for the Nash character. He actually, in his life, not the evil stuff, but he is a lot more like Nash than he is Ernest. Like in his actual life, he is a lot more like that. That's kind of how he really is most of the time. Just when he's playing Nash and he's just talking to people normally, that's kind of what he's really like.
Well, he
And
was in. I was gonna say he was in 100 Proof, and 100 Proof was a thriller that came out in the late 90s, and pretty much the only thing you hear about it is that Jim Varney really like played against type, playing like a very like cruel, sadistic character. And maybe that's
oh,
one for us to look at.
97. I've never seen this. I
I,
need to see it though. I'm excited about that now. Shit.
I mean, I guess we
97 was one of his last roles.
yeah, I mean, if we can track the film down, maybe we'll cover that on an
Yeah,
episode
yeah,
sometime
that'd be
soon.
great actually. God, it's so sad. It's so sad that we only ever got to see him for the most part, except what I'm looking at now, which is what I wish I would have seen more of, which is him in serious roles. Because I think he was the fact that his entire back catalog of work is mostly Ernest in commercials and movies is, I think, is to our detriment.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Should
Well,
we?
anyway, any final thoughts about Ernest Goes to Jail or Jim Varney or anything?
Ernest Goes to Jail is complete shit. It's a load of rubbish. It's complete cack, and you should absolutely watch it.
I'll go on record as saying Ernest Goes to Jail is a masterpiece. I can't. How anybody could watch this movie and be aware of the fact that it all works, it's all coherent, it has three acts, um, and not think that that is a achievement in film making is beyond me. You should absolutely see this movie.
This movie, and all of the Ernest movies, they reviewed pretty poorly with critics. But this is a type of movie where I think you'll agree with me here, of where it's like, oh, who gives a fuck?
Yeah,
Who
absolutely.
gives a fuck if it's like if Roger Ebert's gonna give it 2 thumbs up, it's fucking Ernest. He's fun. He's having fun. It's completely harmless. It's complete cack, but it's completely harmless. It's not like those spoof movies that were really big in the 2000s. It's where they're like mean spirited and spiteful. It's completely harmless nonsense.
Yeah, and it's not like Air Bud where it's like, oh, kids are stupid, just make anything. It's they weren't. That's the thing about these Ernest movies. They were directed at kids in a particular niche, but they weren't cash grabs. That's another thing that I love about this, and I love about him. They weren't cash grabs. They're actually really fun, creative, funny, clever movies. There's a real heart to them. Yeah.
Well, join us next week as I once again lower the tone. Gabriel brings some fun movies. I do not. I brought you a fun movie with Avatar. Next week, we're doing 1 hour photo. See you then.
Man. Bye.